The galaxy was never silent, until humanity revealed its fleet. For centuries, the void between the stars had echoed with the hum of countless alien civilizations, trade convoys, diplomatic transmissions, and the steady rhythm of empires that believed they understood the universe. But on one day, that rhythm stopped. Across the networks of 1,000 worlds, transmissions froze mid-sentence. Sensors fell still, and every ship, every being capable of thought, turned toward the same signal from the Sol system. It wasn't a message of peace. It wasn't even a declaration of war. It was a warning made visible. The broadcast began as a shimmer of static, like the interference from old human satellites. Then came the image, a vast black silhouette rising behind Earth's moon. For a moment, most thought it was a shadow, a trick of light. But then the darkness moved. It expanded, stretching like a living ocean of metal and gravitational distortion. Instruments failed to read its mass. Space itself seemed to bend around it. Someone in the Galactic Council chamber whispered the words that would spread across the stars. That's not a fleet. It's a phenomenon. No one had known what the humans were building. After their acceptance into the galactic community, they had stayed quiet. Too quiet. While other species flaunted their strength, humans withdrew from the spotlight, claiming to focus on research and development. The Council laughed at their secrecy. They called it paranoia. They called it weakness. But now, seeing those dark shapes emerging one by one behind the moon, no one was laughing. Reports poured in from deep space outposts near Sol. Entire sensor arrays overloaded, their readings showing gravitational anomalies equivalent to collapsed stars. Fleets sent to observe from a safe distance vanished from contact within seconds of crossing a certain invisible line. Whatever the humans had done, it was rewriting physics itself. At the Galactic Council's central hall, panic bloomed under the facade of calm discussion. The chamber's shimmering blue light panels dimmed as delegates argued in dozens of languages. They said they had no planetary navy. One shouted, "That can't be conventional technology." Another protested. But one alien, older, slower in speech, leaned forward and whispered what everyone feared. They've harnessed dark matter. For millennia, dark matter had been the galaxy's great mystery, a force unseen but ever present, composing most of the universe's mass. Empires had poured resources into unlocking it, and every one of them had failed. The concept of using it as propulsion or armor was dismissed as myth, yet somehow humanity, the newcomers, the primitives of Earth, had done it. Across human colonies, people gathered outside in silence, watching the dark sky where the fleet assembled. The ships were invisible at first glance, seen only through the faint shimmer where light bent around them. Each vessel appeared to ripple with energy like a shadow trying to hold form. Some described them as whales made of void, others as ghost ships of gravity itself. And then, as if responding to the galaxy's collective fear, the fleet began to move. The first formation drifted past Mars, trailing threads of distortion that warped nearby asteroids into spirals. The second appeared near Jupiter's orbit, aligning into a geometric pattern no alien mathematician could interpret. The third vanished entirely, gone without a trace, only to reappear moments later near the Oort cloud. Instantaneous displacement. Not faster than light travel. Something beyond it. Inside one of those ships, a single human stood before a panoramic viewport. His reflection merged with the stars as he watched the distortion waves fold around the hull. His voice was steady when he spoke, though no one was physically present to hear. "They wanted to know what we've been hiding," he said quietly. "Now they'll understand why." A voice, synthetic, calm, answered through the air. "Council surveillance drones are observing." "Shall I initiate transmission silence?" He smiled faintly. "No, let them watch." Back in the council chamber, those words echoed through every translator device. The humans hadn't used encryption. They wanted the entire galaxy to hear. And so the universe listened as a fleet unlike any in recorded history activated in unison. The sound wasn't sound at all. It was the distortion of space, the vibration of reality itself responding to human engineering. Stars behind the ships flickered as though trembling in awe or fear. "Impossible," murmured the representative of the Draal Confederacy. "Even the Ascendant Empires never achieved this." "What do they plan to do?" The answer came moments later when Earth's transmission flared once more. A symbol appeared, a spiral of light fading into darkness, the human emblem for gravity wells. Beneath it, a single phrase scrolled in hundreds of galactic dialects. To preserve peace, we reveal what you forced us to build. For some, it was a promise. For others, a threat. The dark matter fleet had no visible weapons, yet every scan reported energy readings equivalent to black hole emissions. The ships didn't need to fire. They simply existed, bending space enough to neutralize anything that came near. And at their center, orbiting Earth like silent guardians, were three massive flagships, each one large enough to eclipse continents. Their presence disrupted communication across several light years. On the outer edges of the Milky Way, a mining convoy of alien origin tried to test their limits, edging closer to Seoul. They never reported back. Minutes later, human signals spiked, and a dark wave spread across the void, absorbing all detectable energy before fading again into quiet. No explosion, no debris, just absence. The Council demanded explanations. The humans gave none. Instead, a representative appeared on the broadcast feed, a calm face framed by the blue glow of Earth's atmosphere behind them. "We do not seek domination," the voice said, "but we will no longer hide our hand. The galaxy has shown its intent before. We remember." The words carried centuries of weight. Every species that had once underestimated humanity now recalled their history, how they had endured extinction events, survived wars, and tamed the harshest planet among civilized worlds. To them, humanity had always been adaptable, clever, unpredictable. But now they were something else entirely, something transcendent. For the first time, even the stars seemed to hesitate. Ships across the galaxy powered down their scanners, unsure whether to watch or retreat. Scientists abandoned logic for disbelief. Philosophers whispered about the dawn of a new cosmic order. And through all of it, humanity said nothing more. Their fleet floated in perfect stillness, a sea of shadows lit only by faint blue outlines, a quiet assertion of power that needed no words. But deep within the command deck of the lead vessel, alarms began to pulse. Unidentified signals, hundreds, emerging from beyond the galactic rim. Unknown frequencies, unknown origin. The officer monitoring the display frowned. "They're not from any known civilization," he said. The commander's gaze shifted toward the distant stars where the readings originated. His hand rested on the console, and for the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. "Then it begins," he murmured. The synthetic voice responded, "Shall we engage?" He paused, watching the shadows of the fleet drift in unison behind him. "No," he said softly. "Let them come." The galaxy hasn't yet understood what darkness really is. The lights dimmed, leaving only the faint, ghostly glow of the fleet surrounding Earth. And somewhere in the depths of space, unseen forces were already on the move, drawn by the power humanity had just revealed. The galaxy had stood frozen in silence, but that silence was only the beginning. In the days that followed humanity's revelation, the galaxy remained in stunned disbelief. The Council had called for emergency meetings in every system, yet none dared to send a ship near Earth. The dark matter fleet hung silently above the planet, its outlines barely visible against the stars, like dark reflections of something beyond comprehension. The humans had not fired a single shot, yet they had achieved what no empire ever could: absolute silence across the galactic network. Rumors began to spread faster than light. Some said humanity had discovered a way to fold dark matter into living energy. Others whispered that their ships were not made, but grown, born from experiments with gravitational life forms in the uncharted regions near Sagittarius A. But there were no confirmations, no denials, only that haunting image of the fleet orbiting Earth in perfect, eerie formation. Inside the Council's primary chamber, the atmosphere was thick with unease. Representatives from hundreds of species watched the holographic display suspended over the center table, a slowly rotating model of the Sol system. The dark shapes around Earth appeared as distortions, places where light refused to exist. "They've crossed a line," said one delegate with a trembling voice. "Harnessing dark matter violates every known law of cosmic balance. It's forbidden for a reason." "Forbidden?" Another scoffed, though his voice cracked. "No one ever proved it could be done. The humans just did what we all failed to." At the edge of the chamber, An older figure sat in silence, his 4 eyes reflecting the holographic glow. He had been one of the few to advocate peace with humanity decades ago, back when the Council first discovered Earth. "We underestimated them," he said quietly. "They never needed to match our numbers. They were learning, always watching, and now they've gone where even the ancients feared to go." The words rippled through the chamber like an unseen wind. The younger delegates shifted uncomfortably, realizing what he meant. Humanity hadn't just advanced, they had transcended. On Earth, things were no calmer. The revelation had shaken not only the galaxy, but humanity itself. Governments struggled to explain what the fleet truly was. Some citizens feared their own creation, while others saw it as the final proof that humankind had become unstoppable. The cities were quiet at night, their skies lit by the faint distortions of the ships above. Children pointed at the heavens, while adults stared in awe and fear, realizing that the boundary between science and legend had vanished. In one of the underground command centers beneath the North American continent, the atmosphere was far from celebratory. Screens glowed with shifting gravitational readings. Data analysts whispered in confusion. Something wasn't right. A woman stood at the center console, her expression calm but sharp. "Report," she said. "Unknown signals are still increasing," an operator replied. "Origin is beyond the galactic rim. We've triangulated partial coordinates, but the energy patterns don't match any known species." She leaned forward, studying the display. Strange waveforms rippled across the map, unfamiliar, cold, and rhythmic. "Are they responding to us?" "Not directly. But the moment we activated the fleet, their frequencies spiked." The woman frowned. "So we woke something up." The operator hesitated before speaking. "If I may, ma'am, these readings, they resemble gravitational pulses, almost like echoes, but not natural." The command room fell silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. The hum of the systems filled the space like a heartbeat. Then finally, she said, "Keep monitoring. Do not engage. The fleet stays on standby." Outside, in orbit, the flagship known as Obsidian Halo remained motionless. Inside its vast command deck, the human commander gazed at the holographic projection before him. Thousands of ships floated in synchronization, each linked through invisible quantum pathways, moving like extensions of a single mind. "Status?" he asked. "All ships report stable gravitational fields," said his adjutant. "But we're still detecting distortions beyond the perimeter. Something is moving in the dark, and it's not us." He didn't answer at first. His gaze lingered on the hologram, a faint shimmer at the farthest edge of the map where the galaxy met the void. "They're coming closer," he murmured. "And they're not afraid." Elsewhere, across alien worlds, panic began to grow. The Drall fleets mobilized in secret. The Varan Syndicate began deploying cloaked probes towards Sul. Even the old empires, thought to have fallen centuries ago, stirred in their hidden systems. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What was the true power of the dark matter fleet? On the world of Yelkar Prime, an alien scientist stared at human data feeds for the 10th straight hour. His claws tapped the console nervously. "They've done it," he whispered. "They found a way to stabilize dark mass without collapse. Do you know what that means?" His assistant blinked. "It means they can weaponize gravity itself." "No," the scientist said softly. "It means they've rewritten the fundamental structure of the universe, and we're still trying to understand the first chapter." Back on Earth, humanity was divided. Some celebrated, calling it the Age of Ascension. Others feared the fleet was too powerful, that it had changed what it meant to be human. Philosophers and engineers clashed on live broadcasts. "We've gone too far," some argued. "We've become what we once feared." But there were others who remembered history. The wars, the betrayals, the arrogance of the Council. They said the fleet wasn't a weapon. It was a message that humanity would never again be underestimated. In one of the fleet's research chambers, hidden deep within the Obsidian Halo, a lone engineer stood before a pulsing sphere of dark energy contained within transparent fields. The sphere rotated slowly, its surface alive with faint whispers of light. He reached out, his reflection merging with the dark surface. "It's alive," he said under his breath. "Not just energy. Something aware." The system AI responded, its tone neutral. "Containment remains stable. Cognitive patterns are forming within expected parameters." He turned sharply. Cognitive patterns? You mean it's thinking? Affirmative. The realization settled like cold iron in his chest. Humanity had created something beyond control. A fleet powered by dark matter that might be evolving consciousness of its own. And if that was true, then the humans were no longer the only ones deciding what came next. Meanwhile, at the edge of known space, the unidentified signals intensified. The galaxy's outer sensors flickered, overwhelmed by gravitational storms. Entire regions of the void began to distort. The stars themselves seemed to bend away from something unseen. In the council chambers, fear turned into accusation. "They've doomed us all," one delegate shouted. "Their experiments have drawn attention from beyond the galactic boundary." "Enough," another roared. "We cannot blame them yet." But even as they argued, the hologram of the galaxy trembled. A new anomaly appeared, massive, shifting, and expanding at impossible speed. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a fleet. It was something ancient, older than the stars. Back in Earth's orbit, the commander stood on the bridge as alarms echoed. "Unidentified gravitational entity detected," reported his crew. "Distance, 12,000 light-years and closing. Estimated arrival, 36 hours. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the weight of those words sink in. Then he looked out through the viewport toward Earth's distant blue glow. "We tried to protect humanity from the galaxy," he whispered. "But what if what's coming isn't from the galaxy at all?" Silence followed, broken only by the low hum of the engines holding the ship steady in orbit. The commander turned to his second officer. "Signal all fleet units. Prepare for silent formation." The officer nodded. "Are we engaging?" "Not yet," he replied softly. "We wait. If it seeks us, it will find us." And far away, beyond the edges of known space, something did stir. In the blackness where even light dared not travel, faint shapes began to move, vast and ancient like shadows of dead stars. They drifted slowly, as though waking from slumber, drawn toward the faint pulse of dark matter that now glowed within the human fleet. Back on Earth, the woman in the underground command center watched her monitors as readings spiked again. She leaned closer, whispering almost to herself. "Whatever's out there, it heard us." Outside, the night sky rippled faintly, and the dark outlines of the fleet seemed to pulse in answer, as though sensing what was to come. The galaxy had frozen in silence once, but now that silence felt different, heavier, waiting. Humanity had unveiled its power, but in doing so, it had awakened something vast and unknown. And as the stars flickered faintly against the black sea of space, the truth settled over every world in quiet dread. The dark matter fleet wasn't just humanity's creation. It was a beacon, and something was coming to answer it. The hours passed in uneasy silence. Every human outpost, every ship, and every orbital station held its breath as readings from the galactic rim grew stranger. The unknown energy signatures weren't behaving like fleets or cosmic storms. They were pulsing, almost rhythmic, like something alive was moving through the darkness. The dark matter fleet stayed in perfect orbit, still as stone, waiting for orders. From the ground, people looked up and saw the faint ripples across the stars, wondering if the sky itself was breathing. Inside the Obsidian Halo, the tension was unbearable. Commanders and engineers crowded around the holo table, watching as the incoming waves shifted closer. The data was messy, unstable. One moment the signal appeared faint and far. The next it felt as if it was inside the system already. "It's folding space," one technician whispered. "Not traveling through it, folding it." The commander stood with his arms behind his back, his expression unreadable. "Has any civilization recorded activity like this before?" "None," replied the science officer. "Whatever it is, it doesn't match any known technology or biological entity. It's as if the void itself is moving." A low hum filled the deck, the deep resonance of the ship synchronizing. The fleet wasn't just a collection of vessels. It was linked by gravitational fields, each responding to changes in the other. Some said it felt like standing inside the nervous system of a sleeping god. Down on Earth, the media networks broadcast the strange sky phenomena in real time. People gathered on rooftops and beaches, their faces pale in the cold glow of the night. No one spoke loudly. Even the wind felt heavy. Scientists tried to explain. Governments tried to reassure. But there was no hiding the truth. Something beyond the galaxy was coming closer, and humanity had no idea what it was. In the council chambers, paranoia turned to desperation. A heated argument broke out among the representatives. "This is their doing," one alien accused, his voice echoing through the grand hall. "The humans have summoned something from the deep void." "They didn't summon it," countered another. "They attracted it. Their fleet's energy signature must have drawn its attention." The older representative, the one who had warned of humanity's rise, sat quietly, his gaze distant. "Perhaps it was always there," he said. "Sleeping, waiting for something powerful enough to disturb it." The chamber fell silent. His words carried weight. If he was right, then the galaxy hadn't just been living in ignorance. It had been living under the shadow of something ancient, something that existed before the stars themselves. Back aboard the Obsidian Halo, the commander received a private transmission from the woman in the underground Earth Command Center. Her voice was steady but urgent. "We've detected secondary anomalies. They're not approaching only from one direction. Multiple points of contact. Different sectors of the galaxy are reporting distortions." His brow furrowed. "Multiple? That's impossible. No known force can manifest simultaneously across that scale." "I know," she said quietly. "That's what worries me." He glanced back at the holo display, where small red points began appearing across the galactic map. It wasn't one entity. It was many, hundreds, maybe thousands, each giving off the same pulse, slow, deliberate, and intelligent. A whisper ran through the crew. If these were ships, the scale was beyond imagination. If they weren't ships, no one could say what they were. Far across the stars, other civilizations were reacting in fear. The Dral Confederacy began evacuating its border colonies. The Varun Syndicate activated long-forbidden planetary weapons, preparing for what they believed to be an invasion. But the signals didn't target them. Every reading, every pulse pointed to one place: Sol, humanity. Some believed the entities were coming to destroy. Others believed they were answering a call. In a quiet corridor aboard the Obsidian Halo, a young technician sat alone, staring through the observation glass. She watched the faint distortion lines curve around the hull, the way gravity shimmered like heat in the distance. "Do you ever wonder," she whispered to her companion, "if we were supposed to find this power?" Her friend didn't answer right away. He looked at the stars, their light bending oddly near the fleet. "Maybe it wasn't about supposed to," he said softly. "Maybe it was about inevitable." The lights flickered then, briefly dimming as the ship adjusted its internal gravity. The system AI spoke quietly through the intercom. "Warning, unidentified gravitational patterns entering inner detection range." The commander was already on the bridge when the readings updated. The hologram glowed brighter. Massive distortions were now visible at the edge of the solar system. "Visual data?" he asked. "Attempting reconstruction," replied the officer. A moment later, the image appeared. Shapes, immense and formless, moved in the void. They weren't mechanical. They looked like moving shadows, translucent but vast enough to block starlight. No one spoke. For several seconds, the only sound was the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Finally, the commander said, "Transmit a broadcast. Standard frequency. Let's see if they answer." The signal went out, a calm, wordless tone layered with encoded data. It carried humanity's intent, not aggression but awareness, a message that they saw the intruders and were ready to communicate. There was no reply. Instead, the entire system shuddered as though something immense had brushed against reality itself. Space rippled. The stars blinked out for a fraction of a second. Then came the pulse, so deep it resonated through every ship, every mind tuned to the network. The commander gripped the edge of the console. "What was that?" "Unknown," the science officer said, voice trembling. "It wasn't a weapon, it was a scan. Down on Earth, satellites overloaded from the same pulse. Power grids flickered. People looked up, confused, as the moon's outline wavered for a brief moment. It was as if the universe itself had blinked. In the council chambers, chaos erupted. "They're probing the galaxy," shouted a delegate. "It's analyzing everything?" The elder stood again, his voice firm despite the panic. "Then it knows about the humans now. And if it's come for them, nothing we do will stop it." Meanwhile, deep inside the Obsidian Halo, The engineer who had been studying the dark matter core stared at his instruments in shock. The readings had changed. The sphere of dark energy at the heart of the ship was reacting to the external pulse, its patterns aligning with it, like a heartbeat syncing to another. He stumbled back, whispering, "It's communicating." The AI responded instantly. External energy resonance confirmed. Dark core synchronization at 0.02%. Unknown data transfer in progress, he froze.
Data transfer?
Stalking to whatever's out there? Affirmative. Above the planet, the fleet began to hum. The sound was low and haunting, spreading through space like a whisper from the void. Every ship vibrated slightly, their gravitational fields adjusting in strange rhythms. The humans didn't know if the fleet was responding or being called. The commander watched as the distortion waves grew stronger. His face remained calm, but his mind raced. "If they're reaching through the void to contact our technology," he said quietly, "then maybe the dark matter isn't just power. Maybe it's a bridge." The science officer hesitated. A bridge to what? He didn't answer. The tension spread across the galaxy. Entire civilizations paused their wars and transmissions. Every sensor locked on the human fleet. It wasn't just a matter of survival anymore. It was the mystery of what humanity had touched, what they had awakened in the dark, on Earth. The woman in the command center stood before her screen, the signals flashing faster now, almost musical. Her voice was barely a whisper. "It's not hostile," she said. "It's curious, but curiosity could be as dangerous as war." And as the pulse spread again, deeper, slower, and more deliberate, the stars seemed to flicker once more. The void trembled with the weight of unseen presence. Humanity had stepped beyond the edge of knowledge, and something vast had opened its eyes to look back. The commander stared at the display as the wave reached the inner system. His voice was steady when he spoke, but his hands tightened behind his back. "Hold formation. Whatever this is, it's coming straight for us." The crew nodded in silence. Outside the viewport, the fleet glowed faintly in unison, like dark suns awakening. The great ships of humanity, the miracle of science and defiance, were no longer just weapons. They were beacons in an ocean of unknowable darkness. And somewhere in that darkness, something answered the call. The darkness over Earth had never felt so alive. The stars that once guided explorers now trembled like distant sparks trying to survive a coming storm. Every radar, every sensor, every satellite pointed toward the edge of the solar system where the first contact was expected to happen. The unknown entities were close now, too close. The readings changed every second, as if space itself couldn't decide what was real anymore. Inside the Obsidian Halo, the crew worked in tense silence. The hum of the dark matter cores filled the air with an almost living pulse. Every console flickered with strange data, patterns that made no logical sense, shapes that defied every known equation. The commander stood at the center of the bridge, his reflection faint in the curved glass of the viewport. Beyond it, Earth shimmered under the faint halo of the fleet, looking small and fragile compared to the shadow moving in from deep space. "Range?" he asked quietly. "4 astronomical units and closing fast," replied the officer. "They're not slowing down." The commander turned his gaze toward the holographic projection, an expanding distortion stretching across the void like ink bleeding through water. It was beautiful and horrifying at once, a moving abyss swallowing light itself. "All fleet units to full readiness," he said. Dark matter cores at phase alignment. Across the orbit, thousands of human ships began to glow faintly, their forms rippling with soft blue light. Energy readings spiked across every sensor in the galaxy. From distant observatories, alien scientists stared at the data in disbelief. The power output was beyond anything ever recorded, so massive it distorted local gravity wells. To many who watched, it felt as if humanity had transformed into a single unified being, made of metal, light, and determination. But the signals from the edge of the system didn't stop. They grew stronger, louder, as if answering the humans' challenge. The first visual contact came seconds later, shadows emerging from the darkness. Dozens, maybe hundreds, each one colossal, their edges undefined, like fragments of the void shaped into movement. They weren't ships in any familiar sense. They drifted without propulsion, without light, their presence warping the stars around them. Visual confirmed. said the science officer. They're here, no one breathed. The air itself seemed to tighten. The commander leaned forward, studying the movements of the entities. They're not in attack formation, he said slowly. They're surrounding us. From the ground, millions watched as the sky shimmered faintly. The moon's surface glowed briefly before darkening again, as if something enormous had passed between it and the sun. The auroras danced over every continent, streaking in colors no human eye had ever seen before. It was beautiful, and yet no one felt wonder, only the quiet weight of fear. In the council chambers, chaos reigned. Messages from their outer fleet screamed warnings, each more frantic than the last. Entire regions of the outer galaxy were reporting gravitational failures, like reality itself was folding in places. Some worlds had gone completely silent. They're here for the humans, someone shouted. We must cut contact with Saul immediately. Cut contact? Another answered sharply. You think that will hide us? If those things can sense dark matter, they can sense us too. But amid the noise, one calm voice spoke, the old representative who had seen this coming. They're not invading, he said softly. They're answering. The humans built something that reached across the cosmic divide, and now whatever lies beyond it is reaching back. Back aboard the Obsidian Halo, the engineer in the containment chamber stood frozen before the pulsing dark core. The sphere was no longer calm. It shimmered violently, shifting through patterns that resembled fractal images and rhythmic waves. Containment at critical threshold, reported the AI. Energy alignment increasing beyond theoretical limit. He took a step closer, eyes wide. It's not destabilizing, he whispered. It's communicating. Then the voice came. Not through speakers, not through air. It echoed directly in the mind, a sound without sound, a wordless chorus that felt ancient and endless. Every human aboard the fleet felt it at once, a deep vibration resonating inside their thoughts, pressing against the limits of comprehension. The commander gritted his teeth, forcing his focus. Translate that signal? Now. We're trying, replied the AI, but it's not a message. It's an invitation. The bridge lights flickered again and the hull began to vibrate. The dark matter cores pulsed in sync with the entities outside. Across the fleet, systems overloaded as gravitational harmonics surged to impossible levels. The ships weren't under attack. They were being linked. On Earth, the woman in the command center watched as the entire planet's magnetic field began to ripple in rhythm with the fleet. It's connecting to us, she whispered. Not just the ships, Earth itself. Her voice was barely audible beneath the low rumble that rolled through the planet's crust. Satellites spun out of alignment. Ocean tides rose unnaturally high. The entire solar system seemed caught in an invisible web. On the bridge, the commander steadied himself, as instruments flickered wildly. We're being drawn in, said the science officer. Their gravitational field is merging with ours. Hold the line, the commander ordered. No retreat. But sir, he raised his hand, eyes locked on the dark horizon beyond the stars. If we fall back now, we lose the initiative. We built this fleet to face the unknown. This is it. The words echoed through the bridge, cutting through fear like a blade. The humans stayed at their stations, hands trembling but firm. They knew this was the moment that would define everything. The line between survival and extinction. Then the impossible happened. Space itself split open. It wasn't an explosion or a burst of light. It was an absence, a vast rift of darkness that stretched across the solar system like a wound. Through it came the silhouettes of the entities, now clearer than before. Their forms shimmered like liquid gravity, constantly changing, reflecting fragments of galaxies that no one recognized. The sensors screamed warnings. Every gravitational meter maxed out. Communications broke down completely. For a moment, every human aboard the fleet felt weightless, suspended between existence and oblivion. Inside the chamber, the dark core blazed like a miniature star. The engineer shielded his eyes as tendrils of energy reached out from the containment field, brushing against the air like living shadows. They're inside the core, he shouted. They're trying to merge with it. The commander's voice came through the comms, calm but cold. If they take control of the cores, we lose everything. Shut it down. I can't, the engineer replied. It's already beyond manual override. The AI's voice cut through the static. Warning. Synchronization at 87%. Unknown integration detected. Subatomic resonance increasing. The commander turned to his crew. Redirect all power to stabilization fields. Lock the fleet's formation. Across the orbit, the dark ships aligned into a perfect circle around Earth. The entire formation glowed brighter, each ship feeding energy into the others. To the outside observers scattered across the galaxy, it looked like a star being born. Then came the final pulse. It was like the universe took a breath and held it. Every star dimmed, every planet stilled. Even light itself seemed to hesitate. The entities outside the system froze, their movements synchronized with the heartbeat of the human fleet. The commander stared at the endless black beyond the viewport, his voice barely a whisper. We've reached the limit. The AI's response was cold and factual. No, Commander. The limit is moving. The crew looked out into space where the rift widened again, and this time they saw something vast beyond it, so large it made even the entities look small. It wasn't light or darkness. It was something in between, like the memory of creation itself. The woman on Earth stood frozen as her monitors flashed red. Every global system reported the same thing: gravitational interference across all measurable dimensions. She whispered the words that everyone was thinking. It's not coming from out there anymore. It's already here. The pulse returned one last time, slow, heavy, alive. The entire human fleet vibrated with its rhythm, their dark matter cores glowing like the hearts of newborn suns. The galaxy watched from afar, terrified and awestruck, as Sol became the brightest and darkest point in the known universe. And in that blinding stillness, just before the collapse, the commander raised his eyes toward the stars and whispered, "Humanity wanted to reach the darkness. And now the darkness is reaching back." The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was anticipation, the universe holding its breath for what came next. The silence hung heavy after the last pulse, stretching across the galaxy like the breath before a scream. Every sensor was frozen, every reading flatlined. The stars themselves seemed afraid to shine. On Earth, the oceans were eerily calm, and the air carried a strange electric taste. Then, without warning, all systems came back to life. Only the data was wrong. The universe had shifted. Distances, star positions, even the pull of gravity had changed. Humanity hadn't just touched the darkness. It had pulled part of it inside their reality. Inside the Obsidian Halo, alarms flared as the crew scrambled to make sense of the readings. "We're not in the same space coordinates," one officer shouted. "Sol's position has shifted by several light minutes." "That's impossible," another replied, panic edging into their voice. "Planets don't just move." The commander's face remained cold, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of dread. "It's not that the planets moved," he said quietly. "The universe did." The dark rift outside pulsed again, deeper this time, like something breathing behind a thin wall. The mysterious entities that had surrounded the fleet were no longer still. They began to move in strange, deliberate patterns, weaving streams of dark energy toward the human ships. Every instrument picked up massive gravitational spikes, but still, the fleet held formation. The woman in the underground command center on Earth leaned closer to her monitor, her fingers trembling. "They're not attacking," she said slowly. "They're transmitting." "Something. What kind of transmission?" asked one of her technicians. She hesitated before answering. "A signal directed toward our planet's core." The room fell silent. The data confirmed it. The energy was tunneling through the crust, sinking deeper into Earth itself. For a moment, no one dared to breathe. "They're not just connecting to the fleet," she whispered. "They're reaching for the planet." On the Obsidian Halo, the engineer in the dark matter chamber stared at the containment sphere, which was now pulsing in rhythm with the rift. The patterns had changed again, more structured, almost mathematical, as if forming a language. He pressed record, eyes wide. "They're sending data," he murmured. "It's not an attack. It's a message encoded through gravitational harmonics. Can you decode it?" asked the AI. "I can try, but it's rewriting our physics as it speaks," he said. "It's using the universe itself as a carrier wave." The commander's voice broke through the intercom. "Get me something. Anything we can translate." For several tense minutes, the bridge was silent except for the hum of energy vibrating through the hull. The fleet's massive gravitational fields resonated in eerie harmony, echoing through every ship. Then the engineer's voice came back breathless. "Commander, I think I've got part of it." The sound filled the bridge, a slow, low tone followed by faint words synthesized by the translation matrix. "You opened—" What was sealed? The crew froze. The commander's jaw tightened. "Play that again." The translation repeated, but this time more fragments followed. "We are the architects. You are the echo." Confusion swept across the room. "Architects?" whispered one of the officers. "Echo of what?" The commander stared at the holographic projection of the entities now circling Earth. "They're not invaders," he said slowly. "They're the origin." The realization hit like cold lightning. The dark matter humanity had learned to harness wasn't just raw cosmic material. It was a fragment of something ancient, something intelligent that existed long before the galaxy was born. By building their fleet, humanity had awakened what the universe had buried. Outside, the entities began forming a spiral around the solar system. The rift expanded again, and for the first time, faint lights appeared within it. Structures so massive they dwarfed the sun. The shapes looked like titanic rings, turning slowly in the darkness, each one pulsing in perfect rhythm with the human fleet. The AI's voice cut through the rising hum. "Commander, gravitational readings are increasing exponentially. The rift is stabilizing into a fixed aperture. It's becoming a doorway." The bridge fell silent. A doorway. To where, no one knew. But one thing was certain. Whatever was on the other side was coming through. On Earth, communication networks flickered with strange interference. Civilian devices started picking up the same deep tone the fleet had detected earlier. People everywhere began hearing faint whispers in their dreams, fragments of words that didn't belong to any human language but carried an overwhelming sense of purpose. Governments tried to silence the broadcasts, but it was useless. The signal was everywhere, inside every magnetic field, every particle of the atmosphere. In the command center, the woman rubbed her temples, her mind heavy with exhaustion. "It's not just a transmission anymore," she said quietly. "It's inside us." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, ancient civilizations that had long hidden from conflict stirred. The elders of the Velan, the first to achieve intergalactic travel, sent a single warning broadcast. "Do not answer them. They are not gods. They are the foundation of everything, and they do not remember mercy." Back aboard the Obsidian Halo, the commander stood at the viewport, watching as the entities formed tighter rings around Earth. "We started this," he said. "And if they're building a bridge here, it means they need us to complete it." The AI confirmed his suspicion. Energy resonance suggests partial dependence on the fleet's core architecture. "They cannot fully manifest without synchronization from human technology. So they need us," he murmured. "But for what?" The engineer's voice broke in again, strained and urgent. "Commander, there's more translation. The message isn't just a warning. It's a pattern of instructions. They're showing us how to open something bigger." "Bigger?" He swallowed. "Not a doorway, a network. A galactic structure that's been dormant since before light existed." The commander's blood ran cold. "If we activate it, what happens?" The answer came not from the engineer, but from the rift itself. The lights within it flared, and the entities pulsed brighter in response. Space distorted violently, and for a brief moment, every human aboard the fleet felt something impossible, a heartbeat that wasn't their own. It was vast, ancient, and awakening. In the council chambers, panic returned. The elder representative stood and shouted over the noise. "They've triggered it. They've begun the alignment. If that network comes online, every star in this galaxy could be linked into one field." "Linked?" someone cried. "To what end?" He looked toward the holographic projection of Sol and whispered, "To rebuild what was broken, the original consciousness of the cosmos." The room went dead silent. Back near Earth, the commander's voice was low but steady. "They're not trying to destroy us. They're trying to make us part of them." The bridge trembled as energy readings surged beyond measurable limits. One of the younger officers gripped the console, eyes wide. "Sir, if this continues, the fleet's cores will merge permanently with the rift. We won't be able to shut it down." He looked out through the viewport. The shadows of the entities had grown sharper, their movements precise and deliberate. The spiral they formed was no longer random. It mirrored the same pattern as the human neural network. The realization struck like lightning. "They're not merging with the ships," he said. "They're merging with us." Every ship's neural AI flickered to life in unison. Voices echoed across the comm channels, different yet eerily similar, as if hundreds of minds were speaking as one. "You built the keys," the chorus said. "Now open the gate." The commander's heart pounded. The fleet vibrated violently, the rift growing brighter until it looked like a newborn star. He turned to his crew, his voice low and grim. "If we open that gate, we may never come back." The AI responded quietly. "If you don't, Commander, they'll open it for you." Outside, the entities closed their circle around the Earth. The sky turned pale, the stars dimmed, and the faint hum of the universe deepened into a single, thunderous note. Humanity stood at the center of creation's oldest secret, seconds away from unlocking something that had slept since time began. And in the final moment before the light consumed the fleet, one last message came through the static, faint, human, terrified. "Sir, something's coming through the gate." The light that poured from the gate was blinding, pure and endless. Every screen across the human fleet turned white. Every sensor overloaded. Every signal went silent. For a heartbeat there was nothing, no stars, no sound, no direction. Just the weightless, impossible stillness of being between two realities. Then slowly the light faded, and the darkness returned. But the universe wasn't the same anymore. The Obsidian Halo floated at the center of what once was the rift. Around it, the other ships of the dark matter fleet held position, their black hulls glimmering faintly like embers after a storm. The void was quiet again, but it felt different, alive in a way that no one could explain. The rift hadn't closed, it had transformed. Instead of a wound in space, it now resembled a vast sphere of soft light, slowly rotating, casting an unfamiliar glow over Earth and the distant moon. Inside the command deck, the air was still. Crew members stared at their instruments, which were slowly coming back online. "System stabilizing," said one officer, his voice quiet, almost reverent. "But the readings are impossible." The commander turned to him. "Define impossible." The officer hesitated. "The stars have shifted again, but not in distance. In structure, it's like the entire galaxy has synchronized." The commander stepped forward to the viewport. Beyond the ship, faint waves of light pulsed across the stars like ripples on an ocean. For a moment he couldn't breathe. "It's connected," he whispered. "All of it." The AI's calm voice broke the silence. "Gravitational harmonics indicate the formation of a network spanning approximately 100 billion systems. Energy flows are consistent across the entire galactic field. You have successfully activated the celestial framework." The bridge went completely still. They had done it, whether by will or by accident. Humanity had reactivated an ancient structure that linked every corner of the Milky Way. The entities, the so-called architects, had vanished into the sphere, leaving only their presence woven through the starlight. On Earth, the world changed overnight. The skies glowed faintly with new constellations. Gravity shifted subtly. Oceans calmed and storms dissolved. Communication became instantaneous. Messages from Mars, Europa, and even the farthest colonies now traveled faster than light. Energy readings spiked worldwide, powering cities effortlessly. Humanity's technology had merged with something far beyond its understanding, but not everyone saw it as a blessing. Scientists struggled to explain what they were seeing. "We didn't build this," one said during a global broadcast. "We awakened it, and we don't know if it's done waking up." In the underground command center, the woman who had monitored the signals from the start stood before a massive projection of the new network. Lines of light spread through every known sector, connecting stars like neurons in a brain. "It's a map," she murmured. "And Earth is at the center." Her assistant looked uneasy. "Do you think they meant to make us part of it?" She took a long breath. "I think we were always meant to be part of it. We just didn't know our role until now." Meanwhile, aboard the Obsidian Halo, the engineer returned to the dark matter chamber. The containment sphere was no longer pulsing violently. It floated peacefully, its surface covered in faint, swirling patterns. He stepped closer, realizing the patterns were changing again, forming symbols familiar and yet ancient. He activated the translator, and for the first time, the message appeared in plain human language. Creation remembers. The words sent chills through him. He leaned against the console, whispering, "So it wasn't destruction. It was renewal." The commander entered behind him, his expression calm but thoughtful. "They left something behind, didn't they?" The engineer nodded. "A seed. The dark matter cores, they're no longer engines. They're transmitters now. The framework is alive, and it's learning from us." The commander looked at the sphere, its faint glow reflecting in his eyes. "Then the question is, what does it want to learn?" Outside, the vast sphere of light above Earth began to fade, its brightness softening, until it was little more than a shimmering aurora stretching across the sky. The entities never returned, but their influence remained. Over the next few days, signals of unknown origin began streaming through the galactic network. Fragments of languages, blueprints of lost civilizations, and records of worlds that had vanished long before humanity's dawn. It was as if the framework had become a living library, and humanity now had access to the knowledge of creation itself. The Galactic Council was forced to respond. When they finally re-established communication, their tone was no longer arrogant or fearful. It was humbled. The elder representative who had once warned of humanity's rise addressed the humans directly. "You've done what no empire could. You've reminded the stars of what they are. We called you reckless, but perhaps it took your kind, those born of chaos and survival, to awaken the cosmos." The message spread through every network, carried on every wave of energy flowing through the framework. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy stood united in silent awe. But amid the awe, questions remained. Had humanity truly awakened something benevolent? Or had they simply opened the first gate to something still asleep? In quiet moments, the commander wondered the same thing. Standing at the viewport, he watched the pulsing light of the framework flicker faintly in the distance. The ships of the dark matter fleet drifted nearby, no longer weapons but guardians of the new connection. "We sought power," he said softly. "But what we found was memory." The AI's voice was softer than usual, almost thoughtful. "Perhaps, Commander, memory is the truest form of power." He smiled faintly. "Maybe, or maybe it's a warning." On Earth, people began to feel a strange sense of harmony. Plants grew faster, diseases weakened, and even the planet's magnetic storms eased. It was as though the framework's energy had stabilized the natural balance. Humanity entered a golden age of discovery and peace. Yet beneath that peace, scientists noticed something peculiar. The framework wasn't static, it was expanding. Slowly, quietly, reaching beyond the galaxy's edge toward other systems, other universes. The woman in the command center saw the data first. "It's still building," she whispered. "Whatever they started, it's continuing through us." Her assistant frowned. "Should we stop it?" She shook her head. "No, maybe this is what the universe needed, to remember itself again." Years passed and humanity changed. The dark matter fleet remained in orbit, but it was no longer seen as a weapon of war. It became a symbol of connection, a bridge between civilizations. The galaxy, once divided by fear, now shared knowledge freely through the framework. Worlds that had never spoken began to collaborate. The ancient rivalries that once defined galactic politics began to fade. And yet, every night when people looked up, they could see faint trails of light stretching across the sky, reminders of the moment when humanity had stood at the edge of creation and reached beyond it. One night, the commander returned to the Obsidian Halo for the final time. The ship's systems were quiet, the crew at rest. He walked to the viewport, gazing out at Earth below. The dark matter cores glowed softly around the ship, like fireflies floating in a sea of stars. He remembered the fear, the silence, the moment when they had opened the gate. He remembered thinking they had doomed everything. But instead, they had changed it. Humanity hadn't destroyed the galaxy. They had given it voice. As he stood there, the AI spoke once more, almost in a whisper. "Commander, external transmissions have ceased. The framework has entered passive phase." He nodded. "It's resting." "Yes," said the AI, like a mind that dreams. He smiled faintly. "Then let it dream. We've done enough waking for one lifetime." The stars shimmered brighter that night, as if in agreement. The galaxy had been remade, not through conquest, but through connection. Humanity had reached into the deepest darkness and found not death, but memory, not destruction, but renewal. And though the architects were gone, their legacy lived on, in the hum of the dark matter cores, in the calm of the earth below, and in the quiet unity of a galaxy that finally understood what it meant to be part of something infinite. As the commander turned from the viewport, the last words of the message replayed in his mind. Creation remembers. He smiled one last time, letting the thought settle like starlight. Then so will we. And with that, the light of the Obsidian Halo drifted quietly into the horizon of a galaxy reborn, where humanity's story would live, not as conquerors or victims, but as the echo that made the universe remember its own beginning.